I want to tell you a story today, not because I've got everything figured out, not to paint the shiny image of myself like everybody else is on social media, but because it's real. This is just an attempt to inspire those who feel exactly like me. It doesn't matter if you're young, old, or rich or poor. Because in a world full of noise and advices and highlight reels, I think sometimes what we really need is someone just telling the truth. So this isn't meant to be a brag. This isn't something perfect. It's not a perfectly wrapped success story. In fact, parts of this story might be incredibly uncomfortable for me. There are moments where I was lost, where I pretended to be someone else I wasn't, where I ignored my own voice for years because I was scared to listen to it. But I'm sharing it because if you're feeling stuck or aimless or like you don't know where you're going anymore, then maybe this helps you feel a little less lonely. Maybe it gives you permission to ask the questions you've always been avoiding. And maybe by the end of this, you will have one step forward that actually feels like yours, not someone else's idea of your life. So let's start from the beginning. Let me be clear from the jump. This isn't about blaming anyone. This is not a campaign against my parents or, the culture that I was raised in. So I grew up in Vietnam, a collectivist society, an Asian household, and my parents, they did their best. They didn't have, coaching books. They didn't grow up reading Nietzsche or Kierkegaard. They weren't given a guide on how to raise a kid with existential questions. They just wanted me to be okay, to be normal, to be safe. And I respect that. But for a long time, I tried to be exactly like that. I wanted to be like everyone else. I told myself that being different, asking weird questions, seeing life in a different way, that was not going to help me. So I shut it down. I became a good student, an obedient son. I measured my worth by class rankings. I joined the conversations about, grades, gossip, and even celebrities. Even when none of it actually felt like me. But I remember this one memory that's burned into my memory. It was right after primary school, graduation day. I was sitting alone in the courtyard. Everyone around me laughing and taking photos. And I just looked around and thought, wait, 5 years of memories, 5 years of friendship, and now it's just over? It disappears? Is this what life is all about? Well, I didn't say it out loud. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't feel like anyone else was thinking the same thing. They all seemed so sure, so be okay with it. And me, I felt like the weird one, so I stayed quiet. But that question never left. And the more I ignored it, the heavier it got. I kept doing what I was supposed to do. Got the good grades, got the compliments. People told me that I was smart, that I had potential, that I was on the right track. And I smiled. But deep down, I felt something I couldn't name. And then came grade 8. My grades dipped slightly, still upper tier for your information, but not perfect. And all of a sudden, everything got locked down. My parents banned me from dating the person that I love, took my phone, took my iPad. I had to go home straight after school every single day. They weren't trying to hurt me. I know that. I know that now. But back then, I felt punished for simply being a human being, for wanting something that didn't fit their blueprint for me. That's when the mask started cracking. I started seeing the path for what it really was. It wasn't structured, it was suffocating. I wasn't being guided, I was being fit into a mold. And I'll be real, it hurt, and it hurt real bad. Not just the restrictions, but the feeling that if I didn't follow this path, I would disappoint everyone. My parents, my sister, my teacher. There was guilt, there was pressure and emptiness. I wanted to be normal for them. But every part of me knew I wasn't meant to be. Some nights I would be sitting there and think, if this is what life's going to be, then what is the point? I felt like I was becoming a number, a copy, a puppet dancing to the rhythm of social norms. But here's the part that matters. That season, that depression, that restriction, it broke something open in me. Not in a dramatic lightning strike way, but in a quiet click. Like something inside me was whispering, this life isn't yours, and the longer you pretend it is, the more you will lose yourself. So, if you're still with me right now, let me say something I wish someone had told me then. You won't find your way until you stop pretending like you're not lost. Let that land. You won't find your way until you stop pretending you're not lost. So if something inside you feels off, if you're moving through the motions, smiling on the outside but screaming on the inside, that is not at all a flaw. That's the most honest part of you. Stop ignoring it, stop silencing that noise, and instead ask the question, if this isn't me, then who am I really meant to be? You don't need the answer right now, but you do need the courage to stop lying to yourself. And that's where my part 2 starts. The moment that I stopped looking outside and started listening from within. So there was this night, still grade 8. I stayed behind at school to finish an extracurricular project. It was around 7 p.m. The sky was already dark. The classroom is half empty. A few classmates still there. That quiet hum after school tiredness in the air. I sat down, phone in hand, just scrolling. Nothing special. And then I saw it. One of the edits of Kobe Bryant. The ones, dim lighting, slow motion clips of him training in silence, waking up at 4 a.m. drenched in sweat, while the rest of the world was still asleep. And it hit me, like something cracked open me from the inside. I remember thinking to myself, wait, it's okay to be obsessed? It's okay to commit like that, just because it matters to you? Because up until that point, I've been afraid of that kind of commitment. Afraid to listen to what the inner voice inside of me had to say. And the one that had been trying to speak for years. The one asking, is this what life is all about? The one that never shut up, no matter how much I tried to silence it. And in that moment, Kobe didn't just look like a great athlete. He looked free. He looked like someone who knew exactly what he was doing and why he was doing it. And that to me was the most powerful thing in the world. That was the exact moment where I realized the feelings that I've had all those years, that weird aimlessness, that tension, it wasn't some broken part of me. It was the elephant in the room. The thing that no one wanted to name. And that night, it finally had a shape. It was direction, it was purpose. Not a perfect answer, not a step-by-step plan, but the feeling that I was finally allowed to live this life with personal relevance. And from that moment forward, I changed. I read Start With Why by Simon Sinek. it made everything even clearer. And I started training seriously. Hours, not for fun, not for clout, but because I wanted to become someone who could inspire others the way Kobe had just inspired me. So basketball became my calling, not because I was the best at it or I was talented, but because it mattered to me and me alone. I stopped chasing rankings. I stopped putting in the fake effort just to make people around me proud. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful or anything of that sort, but I just finally understood. If I don't start from me, everything else will collapse. So I began zoning out the noise, not because of arrogance, but because I was building something fragile, something new, something sacred to me alone. And the voice inside my head, the one that I used to bury, it got louder, it got clearer, and it got stronger. Remember, you decide your own fate, not school, not rankings, not social norms, not expectations passed down like inheritance. Just me, my meaning, my effort. That's what I told myself. And now let's talk about you. If you're still watching this, then I know something about you. You have felt that voice too, that little discomfort in your chest when you're around people who seem so content with the life that doesn't even move you by an inch. That restlessness when you're doing the right thing but feeling absolutely nothing from the inside. That quiet question you keep asking yourself, usually late at night when no one's around to hear it. The question, is this all there is? And I want to tell you that question is not proof that you're broken. It's not proof that you're awake. You don't need another to-do list. You don't need more productivity hacks. You need only one thing. You need to slow down to hear your own voice. Because you don't lack a direction in life, and I know that for a fact. You've just never slowed down enough to hear your own voice. And that voice, it's not vague, it's not abstract, it's you, it's the real you. The one who's been buried under all the expectations and the applause and the assumptions. So here's what I want you to do after this video. Take just 1 hour. No music, no noise, no outside opinions. Just you and yourself. And ask yourself, without any judgment, what am I pretending not to want? What part of me have I silenced to fit in? If I could chase something that was just for me alone, what would it be? Write it down. Don't filter. Don't clean it up. You don't need to act on it right away, but you do need to stop lying to yourself once again. Because clarity doesn't come from overthinking, it comes from honesty. And when you're finally honest with yourself, even if it scares you a little bit, that's when the real direction begins. Let me say this up front. I know how hard it is to change your life direction. To stop and say, maybe I've been living someone else's story, not my own. I know for a fact that it's not comfortable. It's the most uncomfortable thing in the world, and it's terrifying. Because when you start to let go of you've always been your entire life, it feels like the whole structure might just collapse. You've been carrying this identity, student, son, athlete, achiever, for years. And the moment you question it, it might feel like you're betraying everyone who has ever believed in you, and maybe even your past self. But what no one actually tells you is that sometimes to become yourself, you have to burn the script. And for me, the moment that came when Kobe died, I had just come home from the hospital. I was alone in my room, still unable to walk by myself. I tore my ACL. And then the news got hit. Cold, gone. And I'm not gonna lie, it broke something in me. I felt afraid. There was a time I told people to call me Bryant, not because I thought I was him, but because I wanted to be like him so badly. He was everything I've ever admired. He was focused, relentless, powerful. So when he died, something else in me died as well. And for the long time, I couldn't even bring myself to watch the memorial. It was just too much. But when I finally did, something shifted. I realized I wasn't chasing basketball. I was chasing the feeling that Kobe gave to me. I did not want to shoot a ball for a living like he did. I wanted to inspire other people, to give someone else the kind of fire that changed me myself. That's when I coined my definition of greatness. Greatness is what you create for others without taking into account what there is for you. It wasn't about titles anymore. It was about impact. So I pivoted. I became obsessed with entrepreneurship, with creating something meaningful, with telling stories, even like this one, to the people that actually need to hear them. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't done it perfectly. My own perfectionism and my own procrastination still get in the way. There are dreams that I've held back on because I didn't feel ready. There are days where I wonder if I'm good enough or not. But here's what I do know for a fact. Every step along the way, I've been getting closer to myself. And I've realized something else along the way as well. Purpose is not a job. It's not a talent. It's the never-ending pursuit of truth. And every single time you uncover something real about yourself, you opt to change. And that's not a failure, that's growth. So I stopped trying to find the right identity, and I started designing one. I read books, I journaled, I built plans. Some days I read one book per day. Some days I just sat with the discomfort. And through that process, I found direction, not given to me, not inherited, built. Now, let's talk about you. If you're still watching this, I know that you've felt that same tension before. That quiet fear that says, what if I've built my life on something that isn't really mine? And the truth is, maybe you have. Most of us do, but that doesn't make you broken. That makes you brave. If you're willing to admit it, it is the courage that should be praised. So let me say this to you directly. You are allowed to redefine yourself. You are allowed to outgrow the version of you that made other people comfortable. You are allowed to say, I am the architect now. Because once you realize that life isn't something you discover, but it's something that you design by your own hands, everything changes. You are allowed to listen to your own inner compass and design the life that's truly yours. That's what I've been doing ever since. And it's also why I've created something called Project Self-Design. Let me pause for a moment and say, this is not a sales pitch. But if any part of you that resonated with what I shared, the confusion, the pressure, the awakening, and the rebuilding, then this is something I made for you. It's a coaching program built not to tell you who to be, but to help you become the kind of person who knows, who knows where you're going, why you're doing it, and how to build a life that finally feels like yours. Because here's the truth, you're not lost. You're just not home yet. And the only person who can build that home is you. Let me leave you with this. If you've made it this far into the video, then something in your heart is stirring. Something inside you knows that this is not some story. It's a mirror. And if you're starting to see it, you can't keep putting this off. You can't keep telling yourself that clarity will come someday, because someday turns into months, and then months might turn into years. And if you wake up one day and don't recognize everything, wondering how you got here, so here's the truth. You don't need to overhaul yourself tonight. You just need to decide. Today is the very last day that I ignore my voice. That's it. One decision, the first of many. Because once you hear that voice again, the one that's yours, you don't go back to silence. And if you're ready to make that decision, I'll be here, not as a hero, but as someone who's walked the same path and decided it was time to stop surviving someone else's life and start designing my own. Now it's your turn.